Here he is. If you're tuning in on video with us, you can see that we're kind of matching. He understood the assignment, or I did. You know what, Brett Young? Thank you for saying yes to coming on this show. I've been a huge fan of your music for a long time. Pop country's kind of got a soft place in my heart, and he now is in Nashville too. But so thank you for saying yes.
Yeah, man. Of course. Thanks for having me. I think this is going to be fun.
Oh man, we'll have nothing but fun. But before we get into anything, we're sitting on February 1st, and the past month of 2022 is already over. How does that make you feel?
That's a loaded question, man. It's been a weird couple years, but it feels slowly starting to see a light at the end of the tunnel. Like not just for industry, but for life in general. It's starting to feel like we're moving in a direction towards normalcy. I don't know what that means or what the new normal looks like, but January was kind of crap too. So a new month, I think, is loaded with new possibilities. So hopeful, I guess, is where it has me right now. But also being in Nashville and being freaking cold, I'm also ready to get to like April, May, where it warms up, and I can be hopeful then too,
Yeah. Well, listen, you're probably a spring bunny or the fall. They say spring and fall usually bring out the best in people's moods. Speaking of good weather, you're from Huntington Beach, and then you had moved over to Nashville. And I could only imagine the journey from going west to the southeast, but kind of break that down for us. I'm not sure if many of your fans, or if you're tuning in right now and you're just getting to know Brett, there's something there that says, you know what, I'm going to go into country music. But where did all that begin for you, man?
Man, kind of a long story.
Well, we got an hour.
Yeah, perfect. We'll just run this like I'll just tell you my story for the next 59 minutes, and then it'll say like executive producer Dick Wolf, and we'll be done. Does that work? No, I grew up in the church. My dad's a pastor, and so I grew up leading worship, but it was not an aspiration of mine. It was something that quite frankly, girls were more interested in guys that play guitar at a Christian school than they were in athletes. And so I was like, well, I'm not just going to do the sports thing. I'm going to play guitar too. And I ended up going to college to play baseball, and didn't really, continue playing music while I was in college, and then elbow injury and the whole thing, and had to figure out what I wanted to do. And just as a coping mechanism, when I was kind of trying to figure out, what is life without baseball, I started playing guitar again and singing, and that turned into like 10 years of playing bars and restaurants in LA. Anybody that would let me come in and play for free, as long as, if it went well, there was a gig for me the following week with a little money behind it, and so I did that whole thing. And I would try to sneak in country covers all the time, and it just didn't work yet in Southern California. It'd be like people would use that as like a bathroom break or to go to the bar to get another drink. But it was country for me was, I was the only one of my friends listening to it growing up, but I was super into it because I loved the storytelling. And I joke with my sister all the time. I probably wouldn't have found country if it wasn't for her, because every time it was my turn for the front seat, she would kick the back of my seat to like try and ruin my experience having the front seat. And at the time, she's a big country fan now, but at the time that's the music she didn't like. So if she was kicking my seat, I would turn on country to bug her. And that's literally how I found country music. So, fast forward, I'm playing these bars and restaurants, trying to sneak it in. It's not working. And then I start writing songs, and I try to play my own songs for like the bar crowd, and they want to hear covers. And I just happened to take a trip to Nashville and met some of the songwriting community. I just went, you know what? These are the stories I want to tell. The emphasis is on the song, not the singer, which I appreciated so much, because I think it starts with if you sing it better than somebody else, great. But if you tell a better story, you're still going to win. And so after a couple of weeks of trying to visit Nashville, it just wasn't, you felt forgotten as soon as you left, and then you had to come back and start over. I packed up the car and made the drive. And so it's a little bit of an unlikely story that a boy that grew up in Southern California surfing, when country music hadn't even made it west yet, is now doing this. But
yeah, that's your story. Stick to it, because you're doing
sticking
damn well.
to it, baby.
Listen, Brett, I told you I'd sent the album around to a lot of folks this past week, and I even told Sean, I was like, oh my God, Brett's here, let's go. Here stuck with me for a very long time, and you hit the nail on the head. A lot of this is storytelling, and something that people often debunk from country music, correct me if I'm wrong here, is that there's a sense of like over emotion, or I guess like an overcast of storytelling, because it's a lot of it's coming from like the pure heart of how that song comes to life. Let me ask you this though. We're gonna go back for a second. You so for 10 years you were running around Los Angeles trying to like you had said, pick up gigs. Some of them turned into monetary opportunities, but was there ever a point where you said, "Damn, this is not working," and then you went to Nashville, or was it kind of simultaneous?
There was, I'm sure there was self-doubt. The way I remember it though was friends and family started kind of leaning on me with the real job, quote unquote,
Mm,
thing. Cause I was supplementing income by bartending. I bartended for like 10 years in Southern
yeah.
California. Um, and I came to like kind of an agreement with some of my closer friends and family members where I said, okay, if I turn 30 and it hasn't happened yet, we'll lock it up.
Mm,
We'll get a real job. And then 30 rolled around, and that's where self-doubt kind of went out the window. It was like,
mm,
nah, I'm still doing this. I don't doubt it. I know this is what I'm supposed to do. I know that because I'm happy when I do it. And I know
mhm,
that I'm supposed to be happy in whatever I end up doing in life. If this changes, it'll be because it's not making me happy anymore.
mm,
And so the real catalyst for me was just, okay, you're 30. They're going to start leaning on you to honor what you told them, and you're
mm,
going to have a good answer. So what's your good answer? And my answer to them was that I would rather be poor and be happy. And that I would start dedicating, every waking minute to figuring out how I could make a living in this career. And it was almost immediate. I moved to Nashville like less than 2 years later. It was almost
mm,
immediately that I figured out that my passion was songwriting. I even moved to Nashville trying to write for other people. That's how I ended up getting a record deal. We were pitching my songs for other artists that already had record deals. And instead of getting cuts on other people's albums, they want to know who the demo singer was.
mm.
So, and it was me because I didn't have anybody else. I couldn't afford to pay somebody to sing my demos. So I was singing them. And it was an interesting journey, but I think that the self-doubt thing was always in the back of my mind until I realized I had to like put up or shut up, so to speak.
Mm. And you said you'd rather be poor and happy than the
Mhm.
other alternative. That's really interesting. For you listening right now, I usually have a run of show pulled up, and he hit the next point, which is discovering what happiness really looks like, how to find it, and then how to foster it so that it's something you always have. But imagine you're bartending, you're singing, songwriting, and then you had said, you went to Nashville, and then you kind of sing your own demos, and these things are just series of fate, right? To an extent, because you're the one putting out all the work. But during that time, did you ever discover what true happiness was? I know you have it now, which we're going to get to in just a moment. You have a beautiful family. I know you had a kid, and there's a lot there that I think is outside of music that's really providing your happiness today. But the reason I ask is because a lot of times your fans and any of us who watched you on stage or wherever your life has taken you in your music career, we almost look at you and say, "Damn, he's pretty happy." And so that's why I wanted to pose that to you. Was there moments in time where you were like, I am so happy singing this kind of music and turning this into a career? I don't care if I have to bartend. I don't care if I'm poor.
Yeah, I think that was the biggest disconnect with people in my life that genuinely loved and cared about me. They thought they were helping. They didn't understand that I can still look back now. I'm working on my third record as a signed artist. I mean, we've had a lot of success. I can look back on every single day that I was playing the bars and restaurants and
Yeah.
bartending
Yeah.
and say I was wholeheartedly happy the whole time. I was
Dope.
grateful to bartending for supplying the lifestyle that I needed to live in order to be able to play those gigs. And so
Mm,
just like any other job, I didn't always want to wake up and go pour drinks for people or serve food, but
mm-hmm,
I was grateful that I could do that during the day so that my nights were open to gig. And so
mm-hmm,
the only thing that ever happened in my life that kind of put a damper on the happiness vibe was just the ups and downs of my relationship with my now wife. And
oh
that
yeah,
was just that was both of us loving each other and being in different stages of our lives. And so we had to do a lot of working out, not working out, working out, not working out. And so I can honestly say the only time in my life that I've been kind of sideways emotionally is when me and my wife were in kind of a hiatus. But in terms of career, Luke Combs has a new song out called "Doing This," and what he's saying there is exactly how I felt. If I never signed a record deal, I would have been perfectly happy bartending and gigging at night, and living a very kind of marginal in terms of finances lifestyle, because I was doing something that I loved, and not a lot of people get to do that. I was one of my only friends in LA, and by the way, most of them, just like in Nashville, more talented than me. I was one of the only ones making a living singing at night. So what kind of living? Who cares? I go to work, play guitar, and sing for people, and it's paying the bills. So I've never really balked at that. I've always been really happy for the opportunity.
And look where it's brought you now. I'm going to read off some of this stuff, and you hang tight because I want your thoughts at the end of it. But you've once been named Country Songwriter Artist of the Year by Billboard, and then they went on to garner you with nominations alongside ACM, Teen Choice, CMT, and the CMA Awards. And after that, you racked in 7 consecutive top charters along the way. And then, lastly, my favorite, you were named by Rolling Stone one of country's most consistent radio stars. Back to what you said about your sister kicking you. I bet you told her that. He's like, hey, guess he's on the radio now. But hearing that out loud, Brett, after you just told us so much more of your backstory, especially for that 10-year trip in LA, what comes to mind?
It never gets old. The interesting thing is, I can genuinely say that, back to what I was saying, I can genuinely say that the accolades or like the kind of credit history is not what makes me happy. Getting to do this as a career is what makes me happy. And that's why I said, if it was bar gigs or this, music makes me happy, I would do it, regardless of the recognition or the paycheck. That being said, it never gets old, because when people say things like that, they're your peers in this industry. And that's the same way I feel about award shows and things like that, especially the ones that are like industry voted. You feel kind of validated for your choice to stick with it, and why you hung on so long when a lot of people in your life were telling you it's time to bail. And that's really what that does for me, is it validates my decision to hang in there and kind of pinch pennies for a little while. And while I was trying to figure it out, it just confirms for me that I made the right decision.
Can we go back to the bartender note for a moment? Because I remember when I'd go to LA, and oftentimes it doesn't matter if we're at Pump, West Hollywood, or wherever we are in Hollywood, a lot of times there's always going to be struggling entertainers, musicians and actors or whomever. And I'm one who will approach them and say, like, hey, what's the gig? Like, what are you interested in? How are you getting there? How long have you been bartending? Just because I'm genuinely interested. You, I know, have probably had a conversation with a bartender here and there over the last, couple years, if that. If you've ever met someone at a bar and they're waiting on you, does it bring back any memories? And if so, have you had a conversation recently with a bartender that's also a struggling musician? And what was that conversation like?
Yeah, that happens a lot, actually.
I'd say in Nashville.
Yeah, in Nashville, I mean, it's not just it would be remarkable if it was every bar had live music, but it's more than that. It's every bar has 3 floors of live music with a different band on every, and it's like, I'm going to quote it wrong, but there's that old Aldine song that says everybody plays, everybody sings. It's true. And everybody's really good. And it's so humbling when you realize that most of them are not being paid. They're playing for tips. I mean, it's just crazy to think about, but I approach people all the time. I've had anything from the Tootsies in the airport where I met a guy that I just really, really needed. I'm like you said earlier, I'm more pop country, and I had a couple songs I had written. I needed a great country voice on. Loved his voice. We've been friends for years now because we met that way, and he sang some demos for me. Same thing at a bar on Broadway called Bootleggers, which is a great little dive on Broadway. I heard a voice that I loved, and I wasn't even planning to go in there. I walked in because I heard it with walking by, and he's now shopping a record deal, and I think going to record one of my songs. And I just think, it's not really all that different from a music fan or a successful artist that's also still obviously a music fan.
Mhm.
It would be really easy to get kind of snobby and be like, I don't have time. But like, how many people didn't have time for me? You know? So
Yeah.
if somebody, I'm not going to go in if I'm not enjoying what I'm hearing. I'm just a
Mm.
fan at this point. If I don't enjoy it, then I'm going to keep walking. But if I enjoy it, I'm going to put money in the jar and wait for a conversation, just like I would as a normal music fan. So
Mm.
it doesn't always mean I can help or there's something I can do, but I remember how it felt when somebody appreciated what I was doing and especially put a few bucks in the jar, you know? So
Mhm.
I think there are a lot of ways that you can encourage, kind of struggling or aspiring artists without actually giving direct help. Sometimes just saying, that was awesome, man. You stopped
Mm.
me on the street. I had to come in. That was incredible. Keep at it.
Mm.
And I try to take those opportunities whenever I can.
Yeah. No, and I think that's very true too. You'd said it. It's very humbling when you get to a certain level in your career. And as you're balancing like career and life now, I want to talk about family with you. And before that, we're going to talk a little bit about intention leading and burnout. And then the reason I ask is because when your career becomes your life, we see it all the time in the entertainment business. People start going a little south, whether it's drugs, alcohol, sex, partying, or another direction of mental health instability and depression and such. But so we'll talk about burnout for a second, buddy. The idea itself, I think, is overused, just like so many other things that happen with whatever your lingo choice is nowadays. But the reason I want to ask you about burnout, number one, do you believe in it? Why or why not? And then yeah, so like, do you believe in burnout?
Yeah, I think my career, and I'll try to circle back and make this make sense. I think my career is unique because I got my record deal so late. Um, I think part of the burnout conversation is a version of like a child star conversation.
Mm.
Kids that have success too young. I mean, most people that sign their first record deal in Nashville, well, especially in LA, but in Nashville, they're probably couch surfing, not paying rent,
Mm.
and so they take this record deal just because that's all they ever wanted. And from an early age, 18, 19 years old,
Mm.
they're, for lack of a better term, they're kind of humping this career in this industry. And I can completely understand how, while you're still trying to figure out who you are as a person
Mhm.
and trying to navigate this very difficult industry at the same time, I can understand how that can all seem like the same thing when
Mm.
you're not emotionally or mentally ready for it. And I didn't sign my record deal till I was in my early to mid 30s. So
Hmm.
um, I had my own apartment and I had my own car and I paid my own bills and I did my own laundry.
Yeah.
I was a grown up I knew who I was and I liked me
Mm.
already. And so I won't burn out. I'll age out, and I'm always kind of conscious of the industry changing and going like, not can I change with it? Like,
Mm.
is this a change that would feel authentic to me? Am I even willing to, because for me, the fallback is songwriting. That's why I moved to Nashville anyways. So at
Mm.
any certain point, if it feels like I'm being, not being genuine to myself, then I'm lying to my fans. And so I
Mm.
don't see, because I started so late, I don't see burnout in my future because I'm still grateful for what I get to do every single day.
Mm.
And I get to go home to something that is even more special than the career that I have. So
Mm.
I think it's a thing, but I think it's avoidable, and I don't think it happens to everybody. I think you look at guys like George Strait said he was done touring like 4 years ago, and then booked another tour. I mean, he can't
Yeah.
stop.
Right. Right.
Vince
Right.
Gill's still playing like 2,000 person rooms. He could play bigger rooms, but he's playing those because he wants to, because he enjoys it. I
Mm.
think, I think, if this is in you, if you're an entertainer or you're a performer, I don't, unless like you said, you go off the rails and you enjoy a little too much of the extracurricular activities. Um,
Right. Right.
and that's a thing too. I mean, we joke all the time. It's like when I couldn't afford anything, nobody wanted to give me anything for free, but you have a little bit of success and everything's being offered to you. That's kind of the same as the drug and alcohol thing. It's like,
Mm.
I've never touched a drug in my life,
Mm.
but I see a lot of it,
Mm.
because once you get backstage, a lot of things become available to you.
Mm.
And I feel for the people that were too young to make good decisions,
Mm.
and they just thought this is rock and roll, baby. And so I think that can probably, accelerate the process to burnout too, if anybody's going to go through that. But so long story short, yeah, I think it's a real thing. It's not something I'm concerned with for myself.
I'm really glad I asked that question, because you have me thinking here to rename the title of your podcast episode, by the way. There's something there where it's like, it is never too late. And you had set the intention, or like had manifested the fact that you weren't going to give up post 30. And it was at around that time, 30 plus, where you then signed that huge record deal. And then that's what it is. That's your story. And I think that's so cool, because the intention setting of that is now what I want to talk about with you. But the reason I don't, and I guess with your notion on burnout too, yes, it's a thing, it's avoidable, but ultimately it has a lot to do with the journey and like the path that you have already intentionally built. Because part of burnout, in my opinion, and I hate being opinionated, but I just want to say this, the idea, and trust me, like, this is your story. I'm here to ask the questions and shut up, but I want to say this about burnout. The idea usually manifests from a lot of confusion, or maybe too many distractions, or a lost path. But you were so dead set on that path. And by the time you could have potentially reached a burnout, right? The record deal, the traveling, the family bill, you already had who Brett Young was, right? For the rest of your life, you kind of know what that is. So then my next question for you, Brett, BY, no one calls you BY. That's like kind of not the great.
That's actually the most common thing I'm called.
BY. Mm-hmm. Not by
my father-in-law calls me BY. It's very common. You nailed it.
Hell yeah. BY, I got another question. So when it comes to intention setting, and you got to the point where you knew, this is what I'm going to do, this is the life I'm going to live, I'm not doing drugs, I'm staying focused, I'm going to keep dating this chick no matter what's going on, we're going to have a family. So as you've built all this incredible substance in your life, was there a methodology to it? Was there things you were telling yourself, things you were writing down? Can you walk us through any of that?
Yeah. I'm not, a lot of people kind of have like an inner voice. I read a thing, I'm going to get it wrong, so I'm not even going to try to go into it, but there are like 3 different ways that people talk to themselves. I don't remember what they were. I just know that I'm not the one that has actual conversations with myself. There are some people that actually are like, do we do this? What's our next plan? I'm not a us guy. I kind of have like this internal thing that like, I just know. And my friends will tell you, like, for all of my generosity, I'm also like one of the most single-minded, stubborn, hard-headed people, but It's because I believe what I believe. I always have been that way my whole life. If I decide I want to do something, I'm going to, and I'm going to do it better than you. Like, that's how I feel. And if I'm not better than you, then I'm going to work harder than you, because I'm still going to end up on, like, that's how I've always been. And so, in terms of intention, I just don't chase anything down that I don't love, because why would I put in the blood, sweat, and tears to achieve something I didn't care about in the first place?
100%.
And so, like, I'm not like a chalkboard guy. I don't like, okay, here's a list. My wife loves to leave lists on the counter. I'm like, no, like, I can't. You leave me a list, because that's my honeydews for you. And like, I am very intentional about trying to take care of you. And so if you need me to do some things, but like, I don't leave lists for myself. I wake up and I go, what do we need to do today? And then we just do it, you know? And so same thing with my career. I knew I wasn't going to walk away. I made a promise about 30s that I shouldn't have made, but I was really just trying to shut people up because I was tired of hearing it. And then I got to 30 and I knew I wasn't done. And so, I think it is important to be intentional. But I'm not one of these people that like writes down my goals in a notebook in terms of my intentions or what I'm moving towards. I just think it's, I use the word authentic all the time. I think it's important to be your authentic self. And in this industry, it's the most important thing, because you're asking people to invest in you. Yeah. Not just as a musician, you're a songwriter too. And so you got to pull back the curtain and let them see your life a little bit every time you write a song. And that's the same thing with social media, especially Instagram. It's all pictures of your family. And I think my stab at being intentional all the time is making sure that I'm myself all the time. I think that is my responsibility to my fans, so that if one of my favorite sayings, if the ship's going down, I'm sinking it, right? Like, I'm not gonna let anybody else make decisions for me and then sink my ship. I'm the captain. I'm gonna sink it. And if I then, I said this earlier about the industry, if I then try to chase where the industry is going, even if it's not me, that, like, I've let the industry say, like, that's when I walk away, you know? And so my version of being intentional is continuing to be myself, because I know that's the only way that I can feel good about and continue to enjoy this as a career, is to be honest and be authentic.
You heard it here first. That's BY. That's the authentic BY. Brett, you alluded to what I believe is grit and tenacity. So moving right along here, I feel like when you mentioned just a little bit ago that you just get up and you figure out what you need to do that day, period, dot. My next question is, when you think of planning ahead, how far ahead do you plan? I have a feeling it's not like months in advance for things, but based on what you said.
No, I mean, somebody told me a long time ago, the further you look ahead in your calendar, the more stress you're going to have. And I just, man, I can't do it. My wife is a planner. I think that's a lot of women. I think that's probably a majority of women like to plan. They like to know, like, you know, what is this? You said is this February 1st right now?
Sure. It's February 1st, buddy.
Crazy. My wife's probably planning the week I have off in the summer and where we're going to go for like summer vacation with the family. I'm planning where I'm going to have lunch. You know, like, I mean, I just
like today.
Yeah. I was reading this thing the other day. And it was like a guy was in the woods and he looked to his friend and he said, I can't see my way out. And he goes, can you see your next step? And that was it. Like, then take your next step. It's foggy. I can't see my way out. Can you see your next step? Take your next step. I kind of live like that. Probably drives my wife crazy. Cause you know, those conversations where it's like, well, hey babe, did you unload the dishwasher? It's like, well, no, I haven't even been in the kitchen yet this morning, but when I walk by a full dishwasher, I'll unload the dishwasher, you know? And so she's like probably got her run of morning down when she goes to bed at night. She's like, okay, so I'm going to wake up. I'm going to make the baby a bottle. I'm going to unload the dishwasher. I'm going to make the toddler her breakfast. I'm like, no, I just kind of wake up and wing it. You know?
Yeah. Wake up and wing it. But like, I think some of that comes with having done what you've done, not just professionally, but personally. You've groomed so much of who you've become to where there's a level of confidence maybe that I feel like I hit the nail on the head there, where you just know you're going to wake up and crush whatever you're about to do, or you're going to figure it out. There's either one of the two, if I'm not mistaken.
I think it's a little bit of that. And I think it's a lot of not being afraid to fail too. Like, I just know that the consequence isn't going to be life altering. If the dishes get done at 2 p.m. instead of 9 a.m., like, that's not going to change anybody's life. And so like career wise, if I'm playing a 3-hour set and I play one country cover that makes people go take a bathroom break because they don't like country yet, they're coming back. So maybe I did that for me then. Maybe I sat on the couch for 15 more minutes than I should have for me.
Yeah.
The world's not going to stop turning. You know, the diaper will get changed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, it is confidence, but it's also like, I'm not afraid to like get something a little bit wrong, especially if it's like, you know, now as a parent, you learn that you do like very few things for yourself in your house, like very few. And so every once in a while, if I'm like, hey, I'm going to take a little break from being uber responsible right now, and I'm not going to feel bad about it. The kids are happy. They're fed. They're good.
Dude, yeah. I mean, you're saying so much there that's like you kind of have to give yourself some grace, and a lot of people don't do that enough. And it's what leads to what we talked about with burnout. It's what leads to a lot of anxiety, which then kind of like puts people in a very terrible situation sometimes. And I think it's a lot of pressure. If you had to give yourself pressure on anything, what is that? Maybe it's your music, or you know.
The obvious thing is my family. For me, giving them a life where they're not wanting or worried about anything, like that's number one. And I think about that all the time. I think I work harder in my career because I now have that to think about. The other one is, and it's kind of the same but different, is nobody ever tells you, you know, when you sign this record deal, you become the CEO of your own company. That's just not part of the dream. But then immediately,
like, I wasn't trying to be a business, man.
You run a company. you like, that's just what happens. And you're like, well, I didn't go to school for this. I don't know how to do this. You got to hire people, you got to fire people, you got to, and so I feel a huge responsibility to my guys too. And so it's, they're literally trusting me for their livelihood.
Right.
And so if like, I'm not Kenny Chesney, so I can't take a year off and just pay them. That's just not reality. So, if Kenny wants a year off and he wants to spend the money to pay his guys to take his year off, which also he doesn't have to do, he's just awesome. I couldn't take a year off and pay my guys. Me taking a year off would be like, hey, that salary you enjoy, you might want to go drive Uber Eats for the next year because daddy's taking a break. I feel the responsibility to them to keep this thing on the road so that they're working. I guess for me, those are the two things that stick out. I mean, I otherwise I don't really worry about anything. I just I know that like anxiety actually gives me, other people's anxiety is what gives me anxiety. Like if I can tell my wife's stressed out about something, I'm like, babe, it's kind of stressing me out. Like what can I do right now to make you not stressed so that I could be not stressed? Because this isn't, I don't do the whole stress thing. I just don't, like, again, like I said, I don't really see it's kind of a wasted emotion, a worthless emotion.
Yeah, that this is why we'll get along for a very long time. I'm a zero stress kind of guy too. I don't think it, like what you said, it literally wastes energy. And if you know that the stakes are higher in other areas of your life, you can stare something so blatantly in the face and say, like, there's no reason that should stress me out. And that's what you just said. You also mentioned that your two biggest motivators are your family and your team. Do you think that at some point, if they weren't in your lives the way that they are now, you'd be motivated by other things? And what would those things be? I'm just curious.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I just like it was sports and now it's music and then family. I'll always need something that I care enough about to feel that way about. I'll never be happily retired laying on a beach.
Yeah.
I might do that, but I'll have something else going on. I need to feel some sort of purpose at all times. And I now have two beautiful girls and a wife that will be a significant purpose for me all the time. But I think everybody that, has had a little bit of success in their career will kind of always aspire to have something. I'm watching it with my parents just moved. My dad retired a little bit early and moved to Tennessee to be around the grandbabies. And I can see that, like, my dad was a pastor. He never lived like more than 5 miles from his childhood house for 70 years and then just packed up from California and moved. And I can see that he's already kind of itching to find his home church and maybe get involved, even though he's retired, because he needs that sense of purpose. And I think I'll always be that way, but I don't, there's no way to know what that is until that next thing presents itself. And again, like I was saying, I'm not searching for that. I'm not like worried about what that will be if music stops being the thing. I know that I have 2 gigs in February and we get busy in March, and I know when my bus leaves for those 2 shows in Tulsa and San Antonio, and that's literally all I know about what happens next, and I'm good with it.
Yeah. And then you're going to go on that family vacation when the tour's over, right? When you got a week off.
I mean, I assume.
It's all in her hands.
I also ask her to just go ahead and plan it, and don't just tell me when we're leaving in a week, and I'm good with that.
I've heard that from a lot of successful people. It's like, just, I'm going to be okay if you trust the people in your life or on your team or whatever. You'll be okay with the decisions that they make because it's in your best interest.
And that's literally how I built my team.
Yeah.
Was, if I'm going to trust you and pay you to do a job, please don't ask me my opinion just on the next decision you're going to make. If you have to, then I shouldn't have trusted you. If I can trust you, then just make the decision. But like, it's kind of like, leave me alone.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like it's why you guys are on the team together. You bring up a huge thing, which is like the business of music from the artist perspective. I don't think I've had this conversation yet with an artist on this podcast or in ever, that when you do sign with the record label, you become the CEO of your own brand and like your own music and in your own practice. Because I mean, you imagine how many people look at the entertainment business as just like talking heads or, people with good voices and stuff, but you have to understand who you're hiring. Like you'd said, it needs to be someone you trust and that can get the job done with your eyes closed, which is like how you can efficiently probably handle everything that's about to come with the tours and stuff.
Yeah, it's once you get comfortable with it, it's very empowering, and it's important to get comfortable with it and take control of it and take ownership of it, because like I said before about steering the ship, you have to. And a big part of that is what I just said, which is you hire people you can trust to do their jobs so that you don't have to micromanage, because you don't have time for that. You really don't have time for that. If you had to do all 21 jobs, you wouldn't be writing the songs and you wouldn't have the energy to get on stage and perform them every night. You have to be able to trust them. But you know, when you're building a team, if you're scared of that position, which I was at first, I didn't want it, to be honest. But also then the conversations when people have to be fired and let go, and you're just like, I don't like uncomfortable, you know, I don't like confrontation. You have to learn how to be a boss. And I hate it. I still hate it, but I dug into it. I leaned into it. And it has served me really, really well. I feel completely justified and empowered to make any decision I want to, if I have to. And I also feel completely comfortable trusting my team to make them on my behalf, unless, you know, the house is on fire. And so it's just an interesting combination of, you know, having power and delegating power. And I finally have a team. It took, you know, there was a little bit of a weeding out period. And I had to learn how to get comfortable having hard conversations, but we're there now. And we have the people that, you know, we all love. It's a family on the road for sure.
You take me as someone, first of all, spoken like a true CEO there, but you take me as someone who has a very set peace of mind. But peace of mind is, again, a word thrown around just like burnout, right? How would you describe peace of mind in your life right now?
I mean, wow. That's the
This is why we match. This is why we matched outfits today, man.
Okay. Yeah. Right. Like I said before, I'm generally kind of at peace. My people that know me well I just had it happen a couple of weeks ago. My buddy that I went to college with, I hadn't seen him in a while. People that know me can see it. It's like, it's visible. Hey, like, this is not you. What's up? And I was like, I didn't even say anything yet. It almost never happens that I'm not cool. Like, I'm just kind of, I wake up and ready to go. What gives me peace of mind is, first and foremost, my faith. I've been taken care of from day one, and even when things got really hard, God was there to be like, gotcha, you're good. Whether it was actually fixing the situation or just providing me a deep breath and letting me know it would be okay, because sometimes the hardest answer to accept is wait. But wait is almost the same as yes for me now. Just wait. Okay, well then if you're telling me it's going to be okay, then I know it's going to be okay, so I can settle down. So it's my faith, it's my family. My parents were that until I had my own family. And I think I'm most at peace. My kids are not going to be offended by this, because they're too young to understand it. And if they hear it later down the road, they'll get it. So I'll say it. I think my most peaceful moments in my life that give me the most peace of mind is after we finally gotten them both to sleep, and my wife and I get to pour a glass of wine and sit on the couch together.
I'm trying to think of when we're going to send them this episode link, maybe in their teenage years, when they can come at you. Dad, why'd you say that?
Dad, how dare you? No, it honestly is. It is just high energy and noise and so much fun until 7:30 p.m. And then at 7:30 p.m. they both go to sleep, and mommy and daddy drink a glass of wine and watch Dateline.
That's what's up.
And we just have a little peace.
Oh man. No, listen, the first two are huge, and then you got the last one, which is probably the most important. You need to be able to have that balance, especially as you're raising kids and gearing up for an incredible year. Speaking of, man, listen, you can't go into an incredible year of touring and launching new albums and great new music that we all know and love without a peace of mind. So now, my favorite part. What are we working on?
Well, in a very strange era of music where consumption is obscure, from streaming to now giving away demos as Instagram stories. I mean, I just like there's what's the next thing going to be? We don't even know. Radio is still king in country music. I mean, it's just, but in other genres, it's really not anymore. And, my last record that I put out is not even a record. It's an 8-song collection. I don't even know what a collection was last year. The exciting thing for me is I write songs all the time. If I'm in Nashville, if I wasn't doing this with you, I'd be in a write today. Like literally just writing all the time. There's so much new music that I'm excited about. We're going to go complete the collection here probably in the first quarter. So in the next couple of months of 22. So there'll be new music coming out. We got hit by, what is it, like the 400th variant of COVID that we just got.
We're running out of alphabet letters.
Goodness. So it really thinned out our touring schedule leading into the summer, but I think we're going to like kind of blow the doors wide open and do the fair and festival circuit through the summer, and then have an actual sanctioned full tour with openers and everything at the end of the year. The new single that's out is a song called You Didn't that I'm really, really proud of. And the music video, I made a decision a long time ago when my wife and I got back together that I wouldn't play opposite another leading lady unless it was her in a music video. And so we've been using actors and stuff, but my wife and I did this one together. And so that's coming out here in the next month. And I have some cool film projects, writing music for film that I can't really talk about yet. But I can say that there will be news before April. And so just keeping busy. I mean, the nice thing about COVID kind of affecting the beginning of this year is Rowan, our youngest, is only 6 months old. And that's a really, really important time for me to be around. I got to do the same exact thing with Presley. The first round of COVID hit right when she was 6 months old. I mean, we were filming the Lady music video, quarantined in Palm Springs when she was exactly the age Rowan is now. So I think I've gotten a chance, because of, you take the good from the bad. I've gotten to be around for the first year of both of my kiddos' lives. So there's new music coming. There's a new music video coming. There's some movie stuff happening. And we have a lot of tour dates that will close out summer and end of the year.
This is all great stuff. And I'm so glad you got to be a dad too. Knock on wood for the pandemic causing that. But I mean, I feel like that's a blessing in and of itself that you get to have the best of both worlds right now.
There is, it is the most challenging and most rewarding job.
I knew you were going to say that.
I mean, it's just, it literally, there's no experience in my life like the black and white of literally, you don't know how, when you wake up in the morning as tired as you are, you don't know how you're going to get to 7:30 p.m. And then you fill those hours with the most joy and frustration you've ever felt in your whole life. And then you go to bed happy. Like how is that even, like, how is all of that possible? But it is, and you wouldn't trade it for the world. And so, I, as grateful as I am every day for my career, I'm more grateful for my family and my life. So
it's called being a super dad. You know what else you're a super dad for? You wrote a book. I was waiting for you to drop it. Love You Little Lady. We're going to put a link down here in this podcast episode, along with links to everything that beholds Mr. Brett Young, BY. But this book, really quickly, how did you find time to write the book is my question.
They HarperCollins reached out to us because they had heard my song Lady that I wrote for my daughter. And they just had a really cool idea. And for anybody that thinks that he's a songwriter so he can write a book, it doesn't work. That it does not work. If they didn't pair us with an amazing writer to co-write this book with, it wouldn't have happened. And so they picked somebody that was fantastic. They let my wife be involved. That was another cool thing. During COVID, you're home all the time, and my wife doesn't help me write songs. So like a project for us to work on together was really cool, especially timing wise. and we got to, it was really a lot of editing. It was like they were adapting the song to the book and then going, how do you feel about this? We didn't, it was a lot of tweaking because the song was already written. And they did such a good job, and the illustrations are so special. I wish we knew that Rowan was coming when we did it, because we would have like hinted at her. So not only do I have to write a song for Rowan, now we probably have to do a second volume of the book.
Yeah.
I can't be in trouble all the time. Oh, daddy, whatever, you just wrote Presley a song and a book, but I got nothing. I gotta do. It's got to be even Steven over here. But no, it was really cool. It was a really cool experience, and they even illustrated our little dog that Taylor and I bought together in LA, like from a gas station, like 9-10 years ago. Even though we don't have him anymore, he's in the book. Like, really special. And I think it's like super relatable. It's been really fun for us to see people's reaction to the book. It's, when we have artists friends that are saying like, oh, we put our daughter to sleep last night with the book, that's really cool.
Oh yeah. Hopefully it's one of the 4 that you dropped here earlier, including Kenny Chesney. I'm sure all of them love you just as much as you love them, man. Probably don't have as much time to read, which is great because it has a bunch of pictures in it, right? It's a kid's book.
Yeah, just read the pictures, baby.
Listen, I got one for you. Why don't you get before you drop the news about finding a peace of mind by putting the 2 young ladies to bed, you got to tell Rowan here that you have a song working for her and that she's not going to be left out. But dude, this is so cool to hear. In the past hour, we were able to hear your story, what it looked like, especially that 10-year period. And if you're listening right now, just like you'd probably followed along this whole time. And if you didn't, you kept checking in. We hit plenty of topics, but most importantly, you starting with that one question I'd asked you, or answer to the one question I'd asked you about, just tell us a little bit about where all of this country music stuff came from, having grown up in Huntington Beach, led to everything else. And I think that is the dopest part of these interviews. And I will transparently, openly, authentically say this, dude, like, I love your music, but it's not until I get to pull your story out of the music that you had been writing this whole time that it then becomes a beautiful podcast episode. So seriously, thank you for saying yes. And now I can say thank you for trusting me with this conversation.
Dude, it was my pleasure, man. It's always fun to, I think you have to take a minute regularly anyways to kind of unpack what's happened recently, to remind yourself, how you got here and what you're grateful for. And so it's always fun to do. And it was a blast getting to do it with you. So I appreciate it.
That's what my twin said, man. Listen, so before we go, there's one more question I got to ask you on purpose, because I was blind to ask it and we just kept rolling. But you know what? When you think of your purpose now, I don't think it's tied to your career, to your family, to your team, to being the CEO at a record, or not at the record label, but of your own music and career now. Can you describe to us what you believe your purpose is at this point, if you had to give it like a working description?
Yeah, I mean, the earthly things are family and friends, but I believe we've very intentionally stayed PG with everything we've ever done. I use the word PG because that's the movies I was allowed to see as a kid.
Yeah.
I think when I realized that I did not feel called to be a worship leader, it wasn't me saying that I don't believe in Jesus and I'm not a Christian. It was just me saying I don't feel called to lead. And then I was given this platform and I felt a responsibility or a purpose to not blur the lines, not put on a show that made a 35-year-old mom feel uncomfortable bringing her 13-year-old daughter, So I feel like my responsibility is to the music, and it's to the fans, and it's also to my creator, who like I said is probably the reason that I'm able to wake up with peace every day, is because I know that even if I'm struggling, he's got his hand on it and I'm taken care of.
Brett Young, everybody, again, I want to thank you, my new friend, my new twin, with all these guitars in the back. I don't even know how to play guitar, so when I come to Nashville soon to see my family, we'll get a little sound check before you go back.
Yeah, I don't know how to play them either. They're just I just it's air guitar for me all the time. Yeah.
Yo, that's the actual secret sauce. Brett, thank you so much. If you're tuning in right now, please open that description. We're going to put links down here to all the great things that he's working on. Everything he's already accomplished, links to his music, links to his Instagram. Take that 1 million to 2 million before he goes back on tour so we can get an extra million of those people. Could you imagine getting a whole nother double times as many fans as you got, man? And I hope that all comes to you this year. So thank you so much again, buddy.
Thanks, brother. It was my pleasure.